Have you ever struggled to find your unique art style? That is what I'm going to talk about today, and this is probably going to be one of the most important videos I'm ever going to make, because aside from all of the lessons that I can give about how to make lines, how to shade, how to design creatures, it boils down to one of the biggest questions artists are striving to answer for themselves, and that is, how do I form a style? How do I get one? Where to find one, and why don't I have one yet? So as you see right in front of you is a creature that I drew called the Banshee, and I'm going to explain to you throughout this video how I was able to achieve my own art style by doing this. And it's a combination of years of experience, trial and error, studying artists that I admired and still admire to this day, going through all of the different sketchbooks and the heartaches of not finding a style. And believe it or not, later on in the video, I'm going to show you the exact drawing that happened about 10 years ago, where everything changed. Everything. And it happened with me doing Daily Spit Paint, which is a Facebook group. So some of you listening right now, a lot of you maybe, you probably know that group. It's a wonderful group. It just happened. And I didn't even think about it. That's the funny thing about finding your own art style. It happens when you don't try to get a style. Some artists would say it's when you combine little techniques from many artists and then you compile them into your own form of doing things. All right, so I'm going to show you how I achieved this. Okay, this isn't going to be a 10 to 15 hour video, because this took about 10 hours. With this whole creature, the design, the call outs and such. But I'll show you how I got started. So really in the sketchbook, I'm just going to flip ahead 2 pages. I don't even know what that is, but I'm going to draw another creature on a blank sheet. Okay, I'm going through my old sketchbooks, and I'm starting to realize that I don't have as much space as I thought to go over these lessons for previous sketches. I think I need to buy a new Moleskine sketchpad or Strathmore, whichever one I want. I don't know. Okay, so there is an importance to having a unique art style. It sets you apart from other people. It sets you apart. And whenever I start drawing, all the movements that I give, I like to just ghost in my movements first. Those of you that have seen my lessons in the past know that I do this. It's a really good way to get your hand loosened up, your arm, your brain, and get those juices flowing, get the adrenaline going, so that you can produce something that you're going to enjoy. All right, so maybe we can do like a serpent in this one. All right, so finding your unique art style happens when you start to study other artists, and it could be fine artists, it could be digital artists too. But a lot of times when you start traditionally and then you transition to digital art, that transition is usually more seamless. It's kind of like when you're already trained as a 2D artist and then you become a 3D sculptor, you have already trained your brain to see forms and shapes in 3D based on your shading ability and drawing through the objects and everything. It usually helps. So like the transition from from traditional to digital is usually a little easier. We're just going to do a light sketch. Okay, so it's probably going to be like a basic serpent. We're not going to do anything fancy here. And those of you that are drawing along with me, it doesn't matter what paper you're using. It doesn't matter what pencil you're using. All right, I got a number 2 right here that I've drawn several pictures on in these lessons. But anyway, without getting down that rabbit hole, there are some common challenges when figuring out your own art style, okay? And the 2 biggest ones that not only have I suffered from, but I see a lot of artists suffer from, is when you compare yourself to others and the fear of experimentation, because we are creatures of habit and we don't like to experiment. We like to be stubborn, and especially artists, what we know is what we think we only need to know. And that's the thing. We don't want to jump out of our comfort zone. And then when we send the portfolio in, getting the same result month after month, year after year, that kind of, reinforces the idea that maybe, just maybe, we're not doing it right. All right, so when it comes to style, for me, it happened over decades. Okay, those of you that are tuning in just for the very first time, I've been a concept artist in the industry for about 11 years now, 11, 12 years. And I've worked with major AAA studios, outsourcing houses, like NetEase, Netflix, Snail Games. I'm with Airship Interactive right now. And I can tell you without a shadow of a doubt that my style is what the studios saw first, and then it was the knowledge of, anatomy for creatures and such, because there's a lot of times, and some of you listening right now, you've probably been through this, where your technical prowess is actually good, but your style is not what the studio is looking for. So it's not that you can't get hired because you're just not good enough. It's that your style is not in line with the studio and what they're looking for. And if they say that they want to keep you in mind for further possibilities, that's awesome, because that's actually happened to me. And I know that when we get that dreaded email like, we're on to other candidates, but we'll keep your file for future consideration, that's actually true. They really do that. And it's kind of nice when that happens. All right, so style. What was I saying? Comparison. Okay. Oh man, that's a big one. We have all compared ourselves to other artists. And then when we compare ourselves to other artists, what do? We try to emulate that style. While that is good as an initial push to learn art, there comes a time when you're going to have to branch off from that, and your own style is going to have to develop, because you were literally just going to be a knockoff of that original artist. And then studios, there's no reason to hire you when they can just hire the original artist. Right? And that's another thing that I can talk about maybe later in this lesson. But like with my style, it came a lot with details. I think details helped me really fine-tune my style. Of course, I've had a lot of influence from movies, and I've been playing games since I was 6 or 7 years old. Super Mario Brothers, the original on Nintendo. I'll never forget that. Movies, games, and those were some big influences. And then when I started to really look at artists in the industry like Stan Winston and all the old schoolers, even old sketches from James Cameron and Guillermo del Toro. A lot of people don't know that they're artists. Like old school artists like, Bernie Wrightson, okay, and his creatures were just amazing. All the old Dungeons and Dragons lore books, I would eat that up. All right, I'm just drawing a serpent right now. I was going to make this serpent rather insect-like. Maybe I could. Maybe I could give it like a crazy little head back here. I don't know. I have to be careful with the perspective when I do this. And see, that's the other thing that happens naturally with the way I think, and that is the insect nature of most of my sketches, because when I grew up, part of the thing that started my style journey was looking at insects. Now, a lot of you probably look at different things, like, for example, animals, okay? And insects are animals, but you know what I mean, like mammals, cats, dogs, birds, anything from other countries, other continents, things that aren't native to where you live, exotic fish, plants even. Plants are another big one that a lot of people don't think about when it comes to creature design, and how close like entomology really comes into play for that. Like if you're an entomologist and you also like drawing creatures, then you have a really good, you have a plethora of things to study, even from nature. But when you compare yourself to others, there tends to be this rabbit hole that you go down, and your self-esteem is greatly affected by it. And then you think you're not good enough, and then what do? You quit. And what happens after you quit? You let months, maybe years go by, where that could have been, put forth for drawing development or whatever you're going to study. All right, and it's pretty discouraging when that happens, because you think back, you're like, oh man, if I would have just drawn that year, I could have been so much better at it now. But like I've said in other lessons, if you think that you're too old to draw and to learn these techniques, you're definitely not too old. Okay, unless you're like 100 years old and you can't think, or it's just the cognitive ability is not there anymore. No offense to super old people, we all get like that. There's still time to learn, and you don't have to treat it like a profession. You can literally just want to learn how to draw because you enjoy it. Okay, and when people enjoy it, that's when the style usually comes out. Style takes time. Style, man, there are so many artists that just want style in 24 hours, and if they don't get it, then something's not right, or they start getting angry and frustrated. And I have to say that you have to let style come naturally. The style that I have for my creatures, like I said, happened over years and years of experiments and shape language, practicing, until something happened to where I'm satisfied with how it turned out. And it was something completely different than when I used to. Now, it's funny, when I show that image in a little bit, you're going to see the style in that image, and it's not a creature, by the way. The style in that image, it kind of resembled the stuff that I did years prior. I can see little nuances that it was like a culmination. It was a build-up. I was doing little things here, little things there, and it just so happened that one of the rules of daily spit paint was you had to do it within 50 minutes. I believe it was 50 minutes. I haven't been on that site in a while, or the group. But it happened, and I did it in 50 minutes, and I was pretty proud of it. I said, you know what? I think I have something here, and that's what happens. So when you're drawing, you know when something happens and it's correct. And that's when your style really starts to come to fruition. All right. And when the only way to do it is when you don't compare yourself to other artists, because you just have to let your art speak for itself. And when it speaks for itself, that's when it comes out. And the lines that you make, no other person on earth makes these lines like you do. They might think of the same shape or the same subject matter, but they don't produce the same lines. Here I am yapping, and I didn't realize that jaw was off camera. I don't know what's going to happen with this serpent. We'll see. Again, this is more of like a fun sketch as I'm talking to you guys. So if you're drawing a dragon right now, that's great. I got to make sure that even though I'm talking and trying to draw this thing at the same time, that the anatomy is actually correct. I got to make sure that the jaw looks like it can close, and the teeth look like they are positioned correctly. There we go. I've upgraded my studio. I have a candle burning. I consider that an upgrade. And I don't know what else is in store for my studio, but I have a light source now, I have a camera, and I have a candle going. I guess it's for the ambiance. So if you're drawing right now and you're trying to spice up your studio, get a candle. Definitely helps. All right. So the other thing I want to talk about is experimenting with different mediums. Now, with me being a traditional artist, I've been using pencils all my life. But I also used other stuff. You know, I paint. I've even painted with sticks before. Markers. And then even so many different kinds of paper before I landed on the type of paper that I like. It's not just moleskin, but it's just smooth paper in general, because it just fits what I like to do as an artist and the details that I like to put. Alright, so I just realized I don't think the bone structure is going to work the way I had it. The eye sockets probably will, but I'm going to have to shorten those eye openings right there. Very deep set eyes. And then the little membrane down here. Okay. I don't want it to look happy because it's not happy. Just putting in little details here. Just something fun. But yeah, different mediums. That can also help you on your journey to getting a different style. Because if you're really frustrated right now and you're drawing with a pencil and it's just not clicking, maybe you should switch to something else. Have you tried painting? Have you tried sculpting? Like literally clay sculpting. I know a lot of 2D artists that are phenomenal sculptors, and vice versa. It's whatever you start with. I have no idea what's happening here. I do know that I want a tongue coming out. I mean, that's a tongue. You know what? The more I draw this thing, the more I don't like it. I'm thinking about changing the drawing, but I don't know yet. I mean, you know what? I could change this into something really grotesque, because when in doubt, make it disgusting. So maybe it's like a serpent worm. I don't know. I do have it zoomed in too, so we'll see what happens. I'm going to put some shading on there too, just to get some smoothness going. Because when I do this, which is part of my style, again, okay, everybody has different ways that they like to shade. Mine was when I just started doing these different directions, because I just loved the movement of shading so much. I started to notice how smooth it could get, and I said, you know what, I think I have something here. Maybe I'll try to develop that. And those of you that are drawing and you start to realize things that you're doing and it's actually looking good every time that you draw it, you better stick with that, because that's definitely going to help your style. Alright, so the other thing about style is it's really just the culmination of influences and experiences. Alright, it's not just about drawing. Like physical drawing, putting it to paper, physical painting, however you apply the art. It's also about how you live, your lifestyle, what you view every day, because believe it or not, I mean, these are my thoughts. What you draw are your thoughts. Okay? And it's most likely because of what you saw when you were a kid. And it's just coming up now. What in the world is this thing? I don't know what that is. But I think I do know. And this is just me, instead of thinking out loud, it's like drawing out loud. I'm going to put a ridge of spikes down the center, because I think that flat air, that little exoskeleton helmet, I think it's becoming too distracting. Yeah. And the other thing about this this particular drawing, I'm probably going to need to cover it with scales at some point, because it's probably just not going to work. I don't know. Whenever there's a big area in the jaw, that's usually a good indication of where the biggest scales are going to go, because when the scales evolved, or when the creature evolved, the scales needed to cover the biggest areas first for protection. So the bigger areas, which is actually a good little tip for you creature designers that want to learn how to put scales on them, and lizards too. It really helps if you look at the large areas first, because that's where the biggest scales go. I'll connect these. Maybe have some really cool shapes in between the eye sockets. There we go. Yeah, it's starting to fill up now. Kind of looked funny before, but now it's starting to fill up. But yeah, so what was I saying about culmination and influence and experiences? Yeah, it evolves over time rather than just being discovered in a single moment. Okay, so like one day you'll be drawing, and you've been drawing for a while, and you've been studying artists like master painters, master drawers, doing all kinds of, okay, you know what? I don't like that tongue. Where's my eraser? Ah, there it is. I don't like that tongue. So I'm going to take that tongue out. There, it was distracting. You guys just witnessed me using an eraser. I never do. But I really needed to, because that tongue was horrible. We all mess up. I could have put it into the happy accident category, but then it would have been distracting, because I would have put details on it, and then it would be showing off what I already didn't like. But anyway, your style evolves over time rather than being discovered in a single moment, okay? A lot of questions on social media I see from aspiring artists, like, how do I find my style? As if they want it answered clearly in the comments below. And that's not going to happen. Because your style is going to happen like we discussed earlier, with experimenting with different mediums, art movements, your own life experiences, traveling. You know, it's just a combination of different things. So I'm going to show you just a different level of how I produce the style that I have. And actually it started back in college. Okay, so we have our little serpent head here, and it was actually industrial design sketching. So that was my major in college, and within industrial design we had the opportunity to go into product design or transportation. Of course I did that. And I do invite you to subscribe, because I will be doing many videos in my foundation series with hard surface, and those are coming up. Cannot wait to get into those. We're talking cars, we're talking robots, joints, machinery, etc. And then we're going to be combining organics and machinery together. I know what you're probably thinking. You're probably thinking, oh, we're going to draw Doom characters. Yes, I'm going to draw Doom characters. Of course I am. And also Gears of War, like all my favorite games. And, we'll be making stuff up as we go, but I'm going to teach you the essentials of having believable machinery. But anyway, that's a different lesson. So let's get back into what I was talking about. Quick thumbnail sketching. So I put a little ground plane right here. Let me, I'm going to zoom out here just so you can see my sketchbook just a little better, and then I will, there we go. Okay, I think that's good. All right. Totally lost my train of thought. Fast sketching. So here we go. So what if we wanted to keep the same style but draw faster? And this is where looseness comes in. All right. So I want all of you to realize the importance of staying true to yourself in your artistic journey. Okay, you have to embrace experimentation. You have to. Or else your work is going to get stale, stagnant, and you're never going to progress, and you're going to wonder why you're not getting better. And when the years go by, well, months go by, the years go by, etc., and you're still at the same skill level, it's because you did not allow yourself to progress. It's nobody else's fault but your own. And we like to blame outside factors for that. And this is where I'm going to tie in the whole being a stubborn artist, because it's totally true. You definitely want to experiment. I experimented. Some of it was hesitantly, because some of it I just did not like using. Sometimes you're just going to use art mediums that you're not comfortable with. I'm not comfortable painting on canvas. I never have been, and that's okay. Those of you that are listening to this and maybe drawing along with me right now, maybe you're not comfortable with drawing with pencil, but you love acrylic paints, or you love markers only, and you won't draw with a pencil or pen. That's totally fine. Embrace that. Get good at it. And you have to stick with it, and you have to experiment. And this is also to tie in what I was saying earlier about not comparing yourself to other artists. It's okay to compare yourself to see if your skill level is at the level of a professional. That's okay. That's not what I mean. What I mean is trying to emulate them and trying to do everything they do. It only goes so far. You can do master copies, but you can't copy the master and do it permanently, because you're just picking up skills that somebody else had already learned and you're just duplicating it. Instead, experiment, find out what works for you, and then your style is going to start to come not whether you like it or not, but when you least expect it. That's the fun part about it. That's what happened to me. And I'll show you that drawing here coming up. It's a sword. Believe it or not, it's not a creature, it's a sword. And when I drew that sword, I realized I really have something here, because when I started to draw everything else that I loved within the style of that sword, I was like, oh man, this just feels so natural. And I didn't even think about it. I was timed. And I think that's one of the ways that helped me. You know what? Actually, put that arch up here. See how I'm just drawing over my original drawing? That's fine, just do it. Doesn't matter. It's my sketchbook. And if you're doing it, it's your sketchbook. Maybe it's like twisting. I was thinking about drawing a wyvern at first, and then I thought, maybe it could be a wyvern, or maybe these joints up here aren't actually hands as part of the wings, they're just like hooks. And it just like floats. So it's kind of like a wyvern, but not quite. Or maybe it has, oh, you know what I'm going to do. Insects. Ha! See? Part of the style. It's coming in. But yeah, you have to experiment. And you have to be true to yourself during your artistic journey. So what does that actually mean, to be true to yourself? It means quit relying on other people's work to make your work look better. Quit relying on other people's style so that you can copy it. Instead, trust the process. If you draw after a hard day's work, maybe you work at Walmart, maybe you work in a library, maybe you're a mechanic, and you have big aspirations and dreams of making it big as a concept artist for games and movies, do what you need to do. Okay? Grind, go to work, come back, set aside 20 minutes a day, 30 minutes a day. My old rule that I gave myself was 20. I now think it's about 30 to 45 minutes to totally get into the groove of drawing. Give yourself that during the day, and you're going to thank yourself, because you're going to start to notice big changes in your skill level. This is why I really stress doing thumbnail sketches. Okay. Now with these scribbles, man, I don't know what's going on, but I kind of like the wing. The thing about sketching wings is, yes, you have to make them believable. You definitely have to make them believable. One, the size of them. Okay, it's a little side lesson here. Always pay attention to the size of the wings to make sure that they're big enough to carry the weight of the body. I see that a lot as a mistake. Why? Because I did that thing. I did that mistake countless times in my art. But that's what you got to worry about with the wings. But what was I saying? Oh, yeah. So drawing 30 minutes a day will really help bump your skills up. And in this style that I'm doing, the sketching style, it's very loose. Now, everybody has their specific way that they apply markings onto a page. Pen pressure, pencil pressure, how long the lines are, what the shape is, what the arc is like, etc. Okay? And by doing so, that is your style. You already have a style. It's up to you to develop it and make it your own. Okay, and yes, when you're born with it and you make it your own, that's just your mechanical movements, okay, because no body moves like yours. But what I mean by making it your own is, it's kind of like Michael Jordan when he was a basketball player. You know, he's arguably the greatest of all time, but he was never going to be the greatest of all time unless he practiced at it. Okay, think about all the things that we know we're kind of technically good at, but we haven't really practiced at it. Like people that, if you're good at, you know that you're good at acting, or you know that you're good at dancing or cooking, but you're kind of still rusty and you wouldn't win any competitions. But you know you could do it. That's where it is. That's where drawing is. Okay? If you know you can draw, like you see shapes in your head and you don't have really a hard time placing shapes on the paper, embrace that. That's your own artistic journey. That's what I was talking about earlier. You really have to embrace that. And here, this is the fun part of art, folks. This is where style comes in. Okay, your style, how you make shapes, how you form cubes, cones, cylinders, and spheres, and all the formations and draw-through techniques that you have in your sketching. That's your style. Okay, so if you're drawing along with me right now, whatever you have on your paper, nobody draws that particular thing like you. I think it's about time to show you my drawing that changed everything. So let me get that out, and then I will show you how it revolutionized my own way of thinking about art. So the image you see now is called Sword in a Rock. So Sword in the Rock changed everything for me. I did this for the Daily Spit Paint group in Facebook. And this particular drawing was a culmination of techniques that I have been learning probably for the, I don't know, maybe 3 to 4 years prior to this drawing. And it just clicked. And it clicked without me thinking of it. I wasn't trying to get a specific style. I wasn't trying to, emulate anybody else that was doing work in that group. It was just, hey, you have 50 minutes to produce art. Can't cheat, can't copy, and you have to do it, post it, and then make sure that you title it with the theme in mind, and then the rest is history. And I will admit that the partial reason why I knew I hit a home run with this was because of the social feedback. Sometimes when you post work, well, a lot of times you post work, when you're first starting out, you want to get a lot of likes because it's kind of like validation that you did something correctly, which is not the case. Okay, it's not always the case. But I experimented with this, and what I did then was I scanned the drawing in, and then I applied the highlights digitally in Photoshop. Okay, so it was done on moleskin paper, but the brighter parts that's like shining on the rock face, that was done digitally. I could have done it with gouache, but I just didn't have any, and I only had an hour to do it. And after this, I mean, the rest of the sketches that I ever did for the group, like for the I don't know, for the next maybe 4 or 5 years, was all in this style, and I started to perfect this style in my own right, and here I am today, still doing the same style, but obviously I've learned to self-edit and find out what was working with that style and what is not working with that style. And of course, at the same time, I mean, this being traditional, I was still experimenting digitally too, and I think one of the hardest things to do ever is paint in your traditional work. That head is so small. You know what? This is going to be a small-headed serpent. I don't even know if that... Wait, you know what? No. Here is what I am thinking that I'm going to do with this little serpent head. I'm probably going to add to it, and I don't know if it's going to work. And I'm not going to edit it out if it doesn't work, because I want you to see a mistake if it does. So let's see what happens. First things first, I'm going to elongate the bottom jaw to something really pointy, because I've never seen a serpent like that, and I'm trying to be different. I'm experimenting. Okay. All right, that's a little crazy, I guess. I don't know. I think I just screwed up. But let's see if I can then add to the head and make it almost like a bird. Maybe make the top bigger. Yeah, I think that worked a little bit. Maybe that's the beak. That's a crazy looking beak. It kind of looks like a dimorphodon? No, but dimorphodons don't look like that. Rhamphorhynchus, maybe? I'm just naming off dinosaurs. But I will put some value in the beak. But I don't want to get off subject here. I kind of caught this. Its neck is kind of turned towards the side. So this arch is actually on the side of it. It's probably screaming, hey, put scales on me. So let's do some indication of some scales there. But anyway, back to the sword and the rock. It's funny, I was looking at this sketch because I couldn't find what sketchbook it is actually from. I got really worried there. I stopped the camera. I went back in my closet because I have about maybe a dozen sketchbooks in front of me, and I couldn't find it. And I was like, oh no. And I looked at my Facebook, my old Moleskine group, my old Moleskine photo album, and I was like, it's not in there. And then I just went back to the group. Surprisingly, there is a vault of all of my work that I ever posted for the group. So I was pleasantly surprised. Okay, so now we have a crazy looking head there. It looks a little better. The head looks a little bigger and more proportionate to the neck. And again, you see how loose I'm being, which is part of my style too. Looseness mixed with detail. It's just because when I started to draw and I did that picture up here, I knew that, okay, if I just put details in certain areas and kind of fade it off in other areas, it's really no different than what people have been doing for hundreds of years, drawing, thousands of years. But I just put my own twist on it. Okay, so if you're doing the same thing, which is great, if you're doing your own style experimentation and you want to know how to put some shading in there and then details and then not in other places, that's a great way to start. Because then you can just draw attention to specific areas, your selling points. All right, and I do want to talk about some things as I'm sketching this. July is coming up, and every single month I hold a creature design workshop that you can sign up for. So please visit the website below. You can read testimonials from past students, and you can get a feel for the syllabus. And it starts every Tuesday, every first Tuesday of the month. Okay, you can sign up through our Discord, which is free to join. The Discord is free, and you can do that by checking the links below in the description. The other thing that I was not sure when I was going to officially start to invite more people in. This is something that I used to do like 5 or 6 years ago, is a drawing mentorship. Okay, so that'll be a more in-depth experiment with your own work. Try to find your own voice. If you're interested in the private mentorship, you'll need to email me about that. My email is bobbyrebholz@gmail.com. If you're a member of the Discord, then you could just DM me there. The private mentorship is a little bit more intense, and some students have taken it already, and it was kind of like, getting their feet wet and me bringing it out again, reintroducing it. But students have had some pretty good success back then, and it's great to see them, tackle new drawing techniques now. So if you want to join the mentorship, that also starts in July, but you have to email me about that or DM me. The other thing that I want to talk about, this is really exciting. So I had the wonderful opportunity in teaming up with BitBrand. So if you're not familiar with who BitBrand is, they are a company where you can get artwork customized for your Apple devices. And I have a line out now called Strange World. The link is in the description, where you can decorate your iPhone or your Apple Watch and your phones with critters that I draw. I have specific artwork that I picked out for the collection. So if you're interested in that, check out the description below. Those guys do a phenomenal job at the quality. Like, the images are great. If you want something really horrific and disgusting to look at, and I got some animals in there too. You'll see it. But I definitely encourage that. There's limited supply of each individual watch face and iPhone wallpaper. Just keep that in mind. All right, so back to this drawing. Okay, so I talked about the sword and the rock. So coming back here to the serpent. It's got like a bony serpent. Yeah, so if you're struggling to find your own art style now, I just want you to know, please keep going. Every single thing that you put down on the paper is your own making, nobody else's. It is based off of your influence and things that you are studying, experimenting with, and your study habits are going to dictate what is going to come out onto paper, or painting for that matter. All right. Every time I do these drawings for you guys, I wish I could just record for the next 10 hours. I do promise a very big time lapse coming up. That's going to take several days of planning, but as long as you guys learn something, I don't care how long it takes. I love teaching you guys about art. Okay, and your style will come. Okay, please don't worry about that. Easier said than done, but your style will come when you don't ask for it. Remember that part. That if you're going to take anything away from today's lesson, your style will come when you do not look for a style, because you're going to be drawing one day and you're going to go, you know what, that looks kind of good. I wonder what I did. And then when you study what you did and you do it again, you're forming your own style. It's wonderful. Thank you all for tuning in. Really do appreciate it, and see you in the next video. Later.